The image is everywhere, showing a flawless, tanned freelancer typing on a MacBook while waves crash gently in the background. It is the defining aspiration of the 2020s, the promise that you can escape the office and take your life back. But for the millions who actually packed their bags and left, the reality hit harder than the jet lag. We are looking at a lifestyle that sold freedom but delivered a very specific kind of captivity. This is not about bad Wi-Fi, but rather why the dream of total freedom often feels exactly like a prison. Psychologists refer to this as the autonomy paradox. In 2013, researchers Mazmanian, Orlikowski, and Yates published a landmark study that explained why digital freedom backfires. They found that professionals who used mobile devices to gain flexibility didn't end up working less, but instead worked everywhere. When you remove the physical boundary of an office, you also remove the psychological boundary of off time. The study showed that the ability to work from anywhere creates an unspoken obligation to be available from everywhere. You aren't tethered to a desk anymore, but you are tethered to the server. The leash is invisible, but because it follows you into your bedroom and onto that beach, it feels tighter than any cubicle ever did. The data on isolation is staggering. By 2025, the Cigna Loneliness in America survey reported that 57% of adults classified themselves as lonely. But the numbers for remote workers are even more specific. A 2024 Ringover study found that nearly 80% of Gen Z employees felt isolated at work, which was the highest rate of any generation. The problem extends beyond being alone, to the loss of micro-interactions. Those small, meaningless conversations at the coffee machine actually regulated our cortisol levels. Without them, remote workers are left in a social vacuum. You might be in a bustling cafe in Bali, surrounded by people, but without a shared purpose or community, you are functionally invisible. Your brain was not designed to ignore the sun. Microsoft's Work Trend Index identified a phenomenon they call the triple peak day. Historically, workers had two productivity spikes, one occurring before lunch and one after. But by 2025, a third peak emerged late at night, around 10 p.m. Their telemetry data showed that meetings after 8 p.m. had risen 16% year over year. This isn't flexibility as much as it is circadian destruction. Remote workers aren't just shifting hours, but are actually adding them. You wake up early to catch a meeting in London, work through the day, and then log back in at night to answer emails from New York. You aren't working from the beach, but rather working all day to afford the beach. That stock photo of the laptop on a sunbed is a physiological horror story. When you look down at a screen on a low table or your lap, your neck flexion hits about 60 degrees. In a neutral position, your head exerts 10 to 12 pounds of force on your spine. At 60 degrees, that force jumps to 60 pounds. This is the equivalent of strapping a moderate-sized microwave to your neck. Doing this for 8 hours a day causes chronic cervical spine degeneration. The glare from the sun forces you to squint, increasing tension headaches, and the heat throttles your laptop's processor speed. The most enviable workspace in the world is actually the least productive and most damaging environment possible. Sociologist Mark Granovetter defined the difference between strong ties, meaning your close friends, and weak ties, which are acquaintances. The digital nomad lifestyle forces you to live almost entirely in the world of weak ties. You arrive in Lisbon or Chiang Mai, meet 20 people, have the same introductory conversation 20 times, and then find that 2 weeks later, they leave. This creates a state of social exhaustion. You are constantly repeating the labor of introduction without ever reaching the reward of intimacy. Humans need deep belonging to function. When every relationship you have has an expiration date, you stop investing in people altogether. You become a ghost, passing through other people's cities. The physical toll goes far beyond a sore neck. A joint study by the World Health Organization and the International Labor Organization found a direct link between overwork and mortality. Working 55 hours or more per week is associated with a 35% higher risk of stroke and a 17% higher risk of dying from heart disease compared to a standard 40-hour week. Remote workers, driven by the fear of losing clients or the need to prove they are actually working, frequently push past that 55-hour mark. Without a commute to mark the end of the day, the body remains in a state of high alert stress, slowly accumulating damage that no amount of green juice or yoga can fix. Then there is the distinct feeling of being unwanted. By 2024 and 2025, the global mood shifted. In Barcelona, protesters sprayed tourists with water pistols, chanting for them to go home. In Mexico City, the anti-gentrification front organized marches, as local rents surged due to the influx of remote workers earning dollars but paying in pesos. This creates a subtle but constant psychological friction. You are not a guest, but are instead viewed as an economic invasive species. Living in a community that resents your presence destroys the fantasy of integration. You aren't experiencing the culture so much as actively displacing it, and that knowledge sits in the back of your mind every time you open your laptop in a local cafe. The remote work revolution wasn't a mistake, but the romanticized version of it was a lie. True freedom isn't about working from a hammock, but rather having the discipline to disconnect and the wisdom to build roots, even if your office is in the cloud. We have to stop chasing the stock photo and start building sustainable lives. If you have felt this specific kind of burnout, you aren't alone. Share your story in the comments because I read them all. Also, if you want to understand more about how our modern work culture is rewiring our brains, make sure to subscribe for next week's detailed analysis.